coming up on Let's Meet the Author.
I want people to know that no matter who you lose, if it's a person, if it's an experience, if it's a job, if it's just a change in scenery, you lose your house. And so much is going on now with COVID and so many different losses and what we
Right.
look like
Yes.
last year and what we look like this year. People are
Right.
grieving that you don't have to be strong through any of it.
Thank you for joining us on Let's Meet the Author, the online show that introduces self-published authors to the world. Let's join the conversation with our host Colleen and today's guest author.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Meet the Author with your host, Galene, me. We are a community, all right, who supports self-published authors. That's right, self-published authors. So if this is your first time tuning in, sit back and enjoy the show. You're going to love it. If this is not your first time tuning in, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Meet the Author. So today's author, all right, she wrote the book, Grief to Glory. You do not have to be the strong one, all right? A conversation, and then she has a conversation between me, grief, and Jesus, all right? She's an author. She's a certified grief coach. She's a passionate educator from the state of Alabama. She holds a master's degree in human services, marriage, and family. She teaches Zumba, all right? She's a wife and she's a mother. All right, let's welcome Margarita Hill. Let's meet the author. Hello, Margarita.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. For everyone, we are doing this particular segment via Zoom. How exciting. So where are you from? Give a little bit about where you're from right now. I'm in Florida.
I'm actually in New Jersey, but I grew up in Alabama, as you said. I'm from Alabama, but I'm here in New Jersey because my husband is military. So this is
Nice.
where we're stationed at here right now.
Nice. How's the weather up there?
It's hot.
It's
It has
hot.
gotten, yeah,
It's hot over here. It's hot. It rained, but then it gets humid, then it's hot. Then it's rainy,
I
then it's hot.
I blame all the women that are on the social media saying it's going to be a hot girl summer. I blame them.
Exactly.
It's definitely a hot girl summer.
Because they spoke it.
Yeah,
They spoke it into
they spoke it
existence.
into existence. Okay, like listen, and I need them to stop. Like, can they bring it back down to like a mid hot girl
Exactly.
summer? Because this heat is not where it's at.
It's
So
not. It's not. It's hot. We're fanning, got the AC going on at the same time. It's
that,
ridiculous,
that
man. So, all right. So I'm not feeling this pain by myself then.
no, not at all.
That's good. So you guys, usually we have the author's pick later in the show, but we're going to do it a little bit different today. So right now, we're going to go into author's pick, which is one of my favorite pieces in the show. It's a part where you get to hear the author herself or himself read a particular part in their book. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's now time for author's pick.
I'm going to read from my introduction of my book. It's Introduction, Grief and Grace Have Been My Saving Grace. So it's a conversation between myself, grief. So grief says, what the heck do I do now? I say, I have no idea, girl. Grief says, oh, I know. You can write a book about grief. I'm like, I ain't no writer. Are you crazy? Grief is like, girl, stop playing with me. You can do this. And I say, says the person who I can't really stand. And grief was like, well, ask Jesus then. So me being myself, I say, hey, yo, Jesus, check it. You think I could do this? Jesus is like, of course you can. You can do all things through me, aka Christ, who strengthens you, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's what the Bible says. All right, bet. So you know why we're both here, right? Oh, you don't? Well, you're about to get real and raw about our grief. This book is written with authenticity, complete, and utter transparency. Are you drowning? Are you tired of being strong or being enveloped into the darkness? Is your heart throbbing? If so, you've come to the right place. Do you know what else I'm pretty sure is true? I bet I can guess that people told you to be strong, to be brave, They reminded you how strong they think you are or were. You don't have to tell me because I already know the answer, and I'm pretty sure you took it straight to the heart. You believe all the hype that you had to be strong for everyone, and now you're drowning in your grief without a lifeline. You let those same words hit you right in the chest, and now you're wearing it like a scarlet letter. Do you know how I know? Well, you see, it's because I allowed folks to dictate my grief. Now look at us. We're all over the place with no outlet because we let them same folks tell us that being strong trumped our grieving process. Apparently, you can't be strong and grieve. I beg to differ. Oh, the lies they tell, and quiet as a kept, I am talking to both you and me. Bruh, I wore that thing like a lace front with gots to be glue.
I hope you enjoyed that piece. I know I did, especially the conversation between you, grief, and Jesus. So what gave you the idea to, first of all, start off with a conversation between you three, you, grief, and Jesus? It's unique. I love it.
Because in this whole grief journey that I have been on, that's how my conversations has been. Growing up, people tell you that you're not allowed to question God, but it's like, how am I supposed to get the answers if I don't ask him a question?
Right.
So it's like, that makes no sense. And I found that to be contradictory because in this space that I'm in, I need to ask God, like, where do I go?
Right.
How do I get to this place? How do I get to that healing
Right.
journey? And grief was riding my back. So it's like every time I'm asking God for something, grief little ugly head coming over here like, no, we sad today. Like we're not talking to
Right.
God today. Like we mad at him today. And I'm like, listen now, I don't know what we're doing here. Like I can't listen to you and Jesus at the same time because y'all on two separate ends of this whole thing for me, and I don't know what to do.
Right.
And so I was talking to my friend and I was telling her, like, these are the conversations that I had, and she was like, I think that would be a good segue to each one of the subjects in there, because I went through the 5 stages of grief, and she said write those conversations. And I have a million journals around my house, and luckily, thank God that I kept them. Those same conversations were in there. And so I just took them, and because I wanted people to realize that it's okay to have these conversations with God. It's okay to have these conversations with grief, because this is how you process it, and this is how you get your feelings out. And I believe that when it's out of your head and off of your heart, then God can do something with it. But as long as it's swirling around in your head, it's just on this huge spin cycle, and it's never going to get you off.
Exactly. I love it. I was reading. So everyone, let me talk to you guys for a minute. In every stage, in every chapter, she posts a conversation that she's having between grief, herself, and Jesus. It is comical, but at the same time, it puts you in her space. It puts you in her pain. You understand her pain. You understand her confusion. You understand her frustration, and the conversations are real. Margarita and I, we were talking about a few minutes before the show, and I said, are these stories that you made up? Are these conversations you made up? Or are they actually real conversations? And she just stated that they're real conversations. And I bet you, Margarita, you're not the first, and you will not be the last who had conversations that are similar to the ones that you posted in your book. So I loved it. Especially, so here in Florida, we say girl, and then you said girl. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's different. So I had to look you up to find out what state you were from, because I was like, the accent was a little bit different.
And when I was with my editor, I wanted to make sure that my language stayed the same, because it's true to who I am. It's how I talk to my friends and family. And so I didn't want this book to be from a scientific or, super hyper spiritual thing. I wanted it to be real and sound like, you're sitting on the couch reading my book, it feels like I'm sitting next to you.
Yes, it was.
This conversation.
It was, because my thoughts was like, I absolutely love the conversation between the author, Grief, and Jesus. The author, Miss Margarita, is unapologetic, transparent completely from page 1 all the way to the last page. She's raw again from page 1 all the way to the last page. All right. And that the book has an awesome narrative that literally helps you imagine what the author is talking about. We're about to go into it further. We're going to take a short commercial break. Stay with us. We are here with Margarita Hill, the author of Grief to Glory. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's your girl Tiffany here, your social media specialist with Eagle-EyeVideomaker. I just wanted to go ahead and reach out to you. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have thoughts where you're thinking, hey, why is my business not taking off? Why am I not getting enough traffic? I'm posting, I'm doing everything they're telling me to do on my Facebook and my Instagram pages. What's next? Guess what? Eagle-EyeVideomaker has the answer. We can help you promote your businesses. You guys ever thought about a commercial? Yes, we can help you. Go ahead and reach out to us. We can have something specialized just for you. Specialized commercials for your businesses, for your products to help take your business off the ground. So go ahead and send us a direct message. Yes, DM us, and we will go ahead and make sure that we send you our great introductory rates. Eagle-EyeVideomaker, again, is here for you and your business marketing needs.
So thank you for staying with us. We are back. All right. Again, this is Galene, your host from Let's Meet the Author. We are here today with Margarita Hill, the author of Grief, the book titled Grief to Glory. So now I have a few questions. I hope you don't mind answering. The first one, it said grace. So you mentioned that grace and grief carried you, or grief carried you to grace, right? It's so funny because I would have never thought that grief would save me. And so, but you mentioned that grief saved me. I'm going, grief saves? Like I would have never thought grief saved. Of course, I know grace saves, but I never would have thought grief saves. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I think that grief saved me in a sense that because I wore it so long, it became part of my identity. I didn't allow my grief to get to a dark place to where I didn't necessarily want it to hurt myself, or I just gave up on life in general, because a lot of times grief can make you feel that way, especially when you miss your person and this person is part of your everyday life. Your whole life is centered around this person and the things that you do. And so it makes it hard to bear sometimes. And it doesn't necessarily have a rhyme or reason. Like it doesn't have a pattern or anything like that. It does what it wants when it wants, and you don't have any control over it. And so I was like, listen, I have to figure out how to navigate grief, because right now grief is navigating me. And so I'm like, I need to be driving, and it can be in the passenger seat because I know it's not going anywhere. I need to dictate where it's going. And so it saved me in a sense because it made me fight to get to a place of healing.
Got it.
And so that I turned that anger into, okay, God, we're in this fight. I have to fight for myself to get out of this, you know, astronomical loss that I had that has led me, you know, to the land of grief, you know. And it reminds me in the Bible that God grieved as well, and he wept as well. And so I knew that I was in good company, you know what I mean? And I didn't have to let that be the end of me and turn me into somebody that I knew God had not said I was.
Exactly. Now that you put it that way, I completely understand. I love it. And then, so everyone, when you read the book, she talks about the loss of her mom. All right. Very painful, because I was crying, literally crying. Then I was laughing. And then she had me crying. Then she had me doing both. And I was like, this is not fair, Margarita. I can't laugh and cry at the same time. That doesn't make any sense. But I felt your pain. I literally did feel your pain. And I said, oh my gosh. So you got to read it, you guys. But when you do, have your tissue there, all right? And because you're going to cry at the same time, but you're going to be laughing at the same time. In the book, she describes and breaks down each stage, all the stages of grief, and we're going to go into it. But one thing I do like how she described grief, and I know grief has a lot of definitions, right? But she described grief in so many ways, but this is my favorite part. She says individualized, and it is, all right, heavy, yes it is, and it's ever changing. And I mean, those three descriptions of describing grief hit hard. And I said, she's absolutely correct. Is there anything else how you want to describe grief before we talk about the different stages of grief?
I think that's exactly what it is. It's individualized. You and I can suffer the same loss. We both can we can both lose the same person. Like if you lose your mother, I lose my mother, but our grief is different.
Exactly.
Our relationships are different. You know, some people are close to the person and some people haven't spoken to them in a while. So there's guilt attached to that.
Right.
There is, you know, there could be some strain in the relationship, some, you know, unpacked trauma, some different things that, you know, keep relationships kind of, you know, at arm's length. So it's definitely individualized. And I hate that sometimes people try to put it in a box. Like
and it can't be placed in a box.
It's not.
It can't. It can't. This book helped me realize that. I'm like, I already knew that, but it's like, wow, it definitely cannot be placed in a box. And thing is, even if several family members experience the same thing, like you said, okay, all of your siblings, one mom, all of you guys grieved in the same way, but I mean, not the same way, you all are grieving, but it's different. Like it is literally individualized for each person. It really, really is. It is. The first stage that in her book that she talks about is denial. So she said, you cannot, this is my favorite part in stage 1, denial. You cannot heal from what you don't acknowledge. You can't. So let's talk about that part, because I like that particular part when you said that about denial.
I think that a lot of times we like to put things on the shelf, or we like to bury them so far deep down in ourselves that, you know what I mean, we got to take out so many other things to even get to that thing, because we don't want to deal with it, because dealing with it is hard. Yeah. And so we don't realize that if we don't, it's like a volcano. It'll bubble up and then it'll spill out everywhere. Right. And it ends up hitting people, places, and things that it was never supposed to hit. So it's like, if you don't acknowledge that you're grieving, you can't heal from it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like if you work out, your back hurts, but you keep going to the gym wondering why your back hurts. Because your back hurts. Because
you're in denial.
You know what I mean? So you're in denial about your back. You know what I mean? And then you end up doing more harm than good. Now you can't work out for a whole 2 months because you didn't go see about the thing that you knew was bothering you. So it's the same thing with grief. If you don't see about it, you don't unpack it, you don't acknowledge it, it will literally make you acknowledge it. You know what I mean? And it will be your choice. You know what I mean? Don't take the choice away from yourself. Make sure that you are choosing to do it before it chooses you, because then you no longer have control over it. It actually has control over you.
So you would say that this is a stage that is necessary, that you have to get past in order to get to the second stage. And I was about to say this. Another part is that I like that you mentioned in the book is you don't have to go through the stages in a particular order. You may go through, and we're going to talk. We're going to go through it, but you guys, but she mentioned, hey, your denial may be part 3, maybe part 4, maybe part 1, because again, grief is individualized. So we're going to talk more about that, because you did talk about that part. You pointed that part. But right before we go into stage 2, which is anger, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Love you give to me, joy abundantly, peace inside of me. Thank you for blessing me.
Hi everyone, Richard C. Guest here with Up Radio, Undignified Praise. Connect with us at Up Radio. Why? Because at Up Radio, we play the best inspirational, contemporary, traditional, quartet, Stellar Award-winning gospel music on the planet. We touch hearts, regulate minds, and restore spirits through music. So whenever you need a musical boost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you could find us at Up Radio. Now, here's what I need you to do. Download our app, Up Radio, and let's get connected.
Love you give to me, joy abundantly, peace inside of me.
Thank you for staying with us. We are back from commercial break. Right before we went on commercial break, we were about to go talk about stage 2, which is anger. All right. Now, I kept wondering while I'm reading the book, I'm like, well, is it necessary for someone to go through stage 2, which is what they say stage 2 is anger? And I said, so Margarita mentioned a part in her book. She says, anger is easier than happiness when grieving. And I go, whoa, I never thought about like that. That anger would be much easier to deal with than happiness when you're grieving. So let's talk about that part.
I said that because the simple fact is that you feel guilty sometimes being happy when your person is gone or when you've lost someone. It's like, God, how can I be happy? Like they're not here with me anymore. Like I can't see them. I can't call them on the phone. I can't sit on the porch with them. I can't do the things that we love to do.
Right.
And so you feel this huge amount of guilt because you're trying to move on with your life. And when you find those happy moments, you're like, oh no, I can't be happy. Like my mama dead. What I'm doing? Like, oh my God, like I can't, like, oh no, girl, you can't be happy. Your mama just died.
Right.
What is you happy about? Not realizing that at the end of the day, I'm trying to find whatever little small spark of joy I can.
Right.
Because this grief has been so heavy on me that I really need those small little things of happiness when I can find them.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, anger people can see. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because you're
right.
angry, you're snapping at people, you have an attitude, or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? But happiness, for some reason, it freaks the outside people out. And it's like, girl, how can you be happy? We just put your mom in the ground and you over here smiling. Because people would be like, if that was me, I would be toe up. They would have to pick me up off the church. I've been trying to jump in the casket like Mr. Brown. Like all kinds of things.
And society did take, they did take like, how should we grieve? Like one part that you mentioned, and when we were talking before the show, and I have been guilty of this, you guys. And I want you guys to ask yourself, whenever someone passes away, and then you tell that person, well, it's okay, they're in a better place. I didn't realize that how silly it sounded. You know what I mean? Me trying to comfort someone else who's grieving, who's going through this grief process and trying to tell them it's going to be okay because that person's no longer suffering. And you brought it to light. And I said, oh my gosh, I am literally guilty of that because I have done that. And so your book made me understand two sides. One, where I can now be a better friend, a better comforter to someone else who's grieving, and also understand where they're coming from. So was that your intention when you wrote that particular part? Because you said that part, that's silly. That's dumb for someone to say that. Is that what you were trying to point out?
Absolutely. Because I feel like, people are so unaware of what grief etiquette is and how to handle people. And sometimes not in a malicious way, we just say the wrong things because we think that will bring that person comfort. And sometimes we don't know what to say. So we'll say anything because we really don't want that awkward silence. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, let me just say something. So the those things pop in your head and you be like, oh, they're in a better place. You know what I mean? Like it was their time. Now you have an angel watching over them. And I've been like, well, can you call them and send them back? Because I don't want this angel. Like, I would rather have my mama. Like, can you send her back?
Exactly.
Like, I don't want that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for the person who's grieving, it's just like, you know what I mean? At the same time, you kind of want to be like, just don't say anything. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. It's better. I'd rather you just be quiet than to say the stuff that in my head, I'm literally like, done killed you about 50, 11 times. Because,
Exactly.
no.
Because it can be awkward. Again, because I have a friend of mine who, like when we were talking before the show, she lost her husband and then she lost her only child, right? So the way they passed away, 2 different circumstances, 2 different situations.
Right.
And so she's still grieving. She's literally grieving. And it's been years. And she grieves through Facebook. She grieves through social media. And we are there for her. But there was one person, you guys, one person who commented saying, you should be over this by now. And so that was first, that was mean, uncalled for, and ridiculous. I'm going, no, there's no timeline on grieving. And I remember reaching out to her and I said, hey, I have not experienced that type of loss. So I can't sit here and I refuse to say, I know what you're going through, because I don't. You know what I mean? Not on that particular level. I don't. And then you guys, when you read Margarita's book, the closeness that she talks about her mom was her everything. Her mom was her world. So me as the host, I cannot experience it, but I do know how to be a better person. So anyway, I digress. Let me go back to my conversation with call my friend. I said, hey, we're going to go ahead. And I said, hey, I'm there for you. I cannot understand what you're going through, but I am here for you. So you just want me just to be quiet and you talk and you scream. I'm there. I am there. So, and she was really grateful. And she's like, okay, you're upfront. She was happy about it. She's like, all right, because I didn't say anything silly, you know what I mean, out the way.
Yeah. Because sometimes we really want our friends and family to tell us that it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in some instances, give us the permission to grieve in front of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I need somebody to see my grief. I need somebody to understand, you know, where I am with my grief. And they will allow me to literally grieve out loud in front of them. And they won't think any more or any less of me because of the stage that I'm in. And so it's like, I ask my clients all the time, like, are you waiting for someone to give you permission to grieve? And if so, I have just given you permission as your coach. You can grieve out loud, unapologetically. It doesn't matter what it looks like to other people.
Right.
Stop. When we're grieving, we make ourselves uncomfortable to make other people comfortable. You know what I mean? And it's like you giving these people too much power to hold your grief in their hands. Take it back and grieve your way, as long as you're not harming yourself or anyone else. However you choose to grieve, it's okay.
Right.
There's no blueprint for it. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no list. There's no, and you need to do this first and this and all. There's none of that. It's however you choose to do it. That's how you do it.
I agree. Especially after reading your book, you made that awareness. You brought that in. Audience, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We got some more good stuff. We'll be right back.
Here it is. The sordid lives of Jesus' ancestors. Every family has skeletons in their closet. Jesus' family does too. These are compelling and insightful stories of strong, determined, and unlikely women chosen by God to be in the bloodline of Jesus. A novel by Alice Newsome. Get your copy today at alicenewsome.com.
Hi everyone, Michael Newsome here with Eagle-Eye Video Maker. And I've got some great news for you, but first I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to have your own show? Your very own show? Well, Eagle-Eye Video Maker is making that possible for you. Whether it's a cooking show or an interview type show or spoken word show, it is your platform. You're the artist. Eagle-Eye Video Maker is making possible our studio so that you can come in, we will record your show in 1080p high definition, and our staff will do all of the production work, handle all of the lighting, handle all of the audio and the sound, just to make your show number one.
Thank you for staying with us. Again, we are here with Margarita Hill. All right. So now we just talked about denial and we talked about anger, right? So she also discusses the 3 other stages: bargaining. Hilarious. I love it because I was like, we do treat Jesus like a salesman. I want you guys to get her book and you need to read that section for yourself. Hilarious, but it's true. All right. Stage 4, depression. I like how she described depression as a disease, right? And what I mean is that she broke it up. So disease is spelled Disease, and she wrote dis-ease, like you're not at ease with anything, especially when you're going through depression, you're not at ease with anything. It's an art of disguise. So let's talk about that a little bit. So I love how you describe that. I would have never thought depression as being a dis-ease. You know what I mean? And I knew it was an art of disguise, but not as a dis-ease. So let's talk about that part.
Yeah, it's because I think that for me, my soul was not at ease because I was grieving my mother. I had this really up and down relationship with God. I was angry with him. I was mad at him. Like I didn't want to have anything to do with him. And people were saying, read your Bible, read these scriptures. And I'm like, yo, like, why aren't I getting any comfort from these scriptures? Why aren't I getting any comfort from, going to church, going to the altar, having people pray for me? Like, why am I not getting any of these things that these people tell me I'm supposed to be getting? And I realized that the depression connected to my grief really had my whole entire heart, mind, and soul at dis-ease. I was not eased at all. There was no easiness in it. Like literally, I just felt like everything was kind of falling apart. And depression was super heavy. And it's like you could be sitting there watching a movie and you see a mother and a daughter, and now I'm over here balled up in a knot on the bed rocking. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
because
you did talk about it. Yeah.
It made that thing bubble up in me, and then that depressed me. So I'm like, gosh, like I can't watch TV. I can't talk on the phone to my friends and their mamas in the background. Like I can't do anything. And I realized it was because, my spirit was literally not at ease with anything that was going on in my life. And so I was like, okay, God, like you have to take this from me. Like, I don't want to carry this anymore. And God reminded me that it was never my burden to bear in the first place. It was never my cross to carry because he had already carried the cross for me. So I didn't need to continue to carry this thing. And it was like, he was almost like, girl, where you been? I've been waiting on you. Like, girl, like, hello. I mean, you about a couple of years later.
Okay.
I thank you for being here. You have arrived.
Especially when you guys read it, the conversations they get, but remember, because in each stage she poses a conversation between herself, grief, and Jesus, and her and grief going at it. And then Jesus steps in, and then at one time, Jesus had to put Margarita in her place.
Absolutely.
Like, Margarita, you forgot who our God is?
Like, exactly. Do you not know who our daddy is, girl? Like, you act like you don't know nothing. Like, what is wrong with you?
Exactly.
Like, you have to gather me real quick, like, and that's part of what I loved most about the book was my conversations, because it was necessary for me to normalize grief for people and let people know these conversations that you have with God, they may not fit other people's narrative, and you shouldn't even strive for them to fit other people's narrative, because your relationship with God is individualized just like it is with grief. So however you and God get down, however y'all talk, however y'all communicate, that's how y'all talk and communicate. And so it was important for me for my voice to come through, and for people to understand that, hey, it's normal to have these conversations with God. It's normal to question where you are, where you're going, where you want to go, where God wants you to go. It is okay. And it doesn't have to sound like Paul in the Bible or Moses or Jonah or any of those people. It needed to sound like me, Margarita. He knows me better than I know myself.
Exactly.
So he already knew what I was gonna say, how I was gonna say it. So none of this was a surprise to him. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, he was like, where you been, girl? Like, I've been waiting for you. Like, I'm about to send a search party for you in a minute. But, you know what I mean? But you here now. So let's get this thing going. So I want people to know that that's super important. However you choose to grieve, however your relationship with God is, it's okay. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody. As long as it makes sense to you and God.
Exactly.
That's all that matters.
Exactly.
That's all that matters.
And throughout the book, you pointed that out, because I'm going, oh my gosh, just because I would not or may not grieve, because again, I have not experienced the grief on your level.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot understand that pain. But the way you describe in the narrative that you put in the book, you put me in that place. You put me in your place. I'm like, I still cried and I still understood it. And the next stage, you guys, when she talks about stage 5, acceptance, I want you guys to read that part. That's another part, because there's so many different surprises in this book that we can sit here and talk all night and we still won't be able to cover the entirety of this book. So stage 5, acceptance, I need you to read her book, find it out. But the part that she did talk about in there, I just want to talk about that a little bit. When she said she had to rebrand yourself and the person and your mom, you had to rebrand yourself and your mom in order to keep going, right? Keep going. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I had to repurpose our relationship because physically she's not here anymore.
Right.
And so I had to get to a place that even though she wasn't physically here with me, that her physical absence in my life did not speak louder than her spiritual presence in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make sure that even though she's not physically here, she's still here. I carry her in me, in my children, my nieces, my nephews, my siblings, and everybody who loved her. So I had to rebrand our relationship and still make it a huge part of who I am and the way that I do things, because my mother did them, the things that she expected me to do. It's okay for me to do that. And it's okay for me to figure out how to enjoy life, even though she's not here, still have those conversations with her, still write letters to her. I learned to celebrate her. For her birthday, I celebrate. I go buy a cake. My daughter and I sing happy birthday. We blow the candles out. We let balloons go up, because that still makes me feel like she's still here and she still deserves to be separated, even in her physical absence. She still deserves to be separated. So I had to repurpose and rebrand our relationship now on a spiritual level, because what I realized was that 15 years ago, when my mother transitioned to glory with God, I transitioned to grief. And I was like, God, I want to be back on the side of glory with you. And so writing this book and putting that out there and allowing people to see my grief wide open, as crazy as it may be for some people, or unethical for them, or, unimaginable for them, that I needed it to be authentic to myself. And so it was just like, listen, God, okay, I need to make sure that I'm being the woman that my mother knew that I was going to be. And so God reminded me that in order for me to grow, she had to go. So in order for me to be the woman that I am supposed to be, the woman that she birthed, the woman that she knew I was going to be, she had to go, because I had to, now stand on my own, and I had to be my own woman and not necessarily joined at the hip with my mother like I was, and she got a chance to see the fruits of her labor. You know what I mean? And everything that she poured into me, now she gets to look from heaven and see me doing those things. And so God allowed me to get back to being in his glory here on earth, and my mother is in his glory on heaven. So now we're on an even plane, my mother and I. We're on an even plane, and now I get to be her legacy. I'm her legacy. You know what I mean? So this book was the birth of my mother's legacy, and me as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as an aunt, and all the other titles that I hold. It made me feel like, okay, God, now we are back together on one accord. Me, you, my mama, and grief now are literally on a level playing field. And so
I agree, because I'm reading and I'm going, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That is awesome. So I'm hoping that everyone else who gets to that acceptance level, when they get to it, because again, you did point out in the book, and guys, she pointed out that every society says that these are the 5 stages of grief. Stage 1 should be this, and stage 2 should be this. But it may not always flow in that particular order, right? So you may have anger before you have denial. You may have bargaining first, 4 years, 4 weeks, 4 months. So it is ever changing. But the part I like about the acceptance is rebranding, you know what I mean? And putting you guys, so now that you and your mom are at the same level, I love it. I love it. I love it. Also, she has a lot of surprising tidbits. She had prayers in the book to help you through each stage. Also, one I like at the end is where she had stories from other people who are also grieving, grief share words from others. And what I got out of it is that each person, each story in your book at the end was completely different, which means how long they've been grieving is different, who passed away is different, who they're grieving is different, how they're dealing with it is different. And that goes right back to when you say grief is individualized, is ever changing. And everyone in the stories you mentioned at the end is completely different. Was that your intention that you put through? I think it was 3 of them, completely different ones. Was that your intention when you placed it in there?
It was, because God laid all 3 of those people on my heart. 2 of my friends, Bianca and Octavia, they both have been my grief share buddies. So we both have grieved losses of our mother. So when I feel a certain way and I feel like nobody might understand certain things that I say, I can call them because they've been there. We're at the same, we're at the same place with our grief. And so they won't take anything I say offensively, or they won't think like, girl, you can't be saying that. You know what I mean? They totally understand because they're there. And they gave a different perspective than mine. And I wanted people to see that grief looks so different for everybody. And it's not just a loss as in a person. It can be, my friend Jeff talked about losing his job and grieving his job that God told him to move from one place to the other. Octavia talked about losing both of her parents and feeling like an orphan. And my friend Bianca grieved her mother before she actually died because she had cancer. And so her prognosis was at any moment in time that she could pass away from it. So it gave people a different perspective from me. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people to be able to see their grief, no matter what it was or who it was or whatever was around it. They could still get something out of my book, if not from me, from my friends.
I obtained a lot. I really did. It helped me understand, again, people who are grieving. And like you said, you mentioned in the different stories that it doesn't have to be necessarily a person. It can be, like you say, a job. So I'm going, okay. I'm like, oh, wow. So it's not just people that we grieve, it's loss of something or someone. And all of these stages still apply. And so I loved it. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
In the last final thought that she had in her book, she said, and she put it in bold, you guys, so you will not miss it. She said, you do not have to be the strong one. She mentioned that. She put it in bold. So the fact that she put it in bold, I'm just going to talk about her final thought. Why put it in bold? Why is that so important that a person does not have to be the strong one?
Because people think that we're supposed to be, and then that keeps us from grieving out loud, because it's like, I can't look, because the opposite of strong is weak, right? But you're not weak because you're grieving your person, and you don't have to be strong. And God reminded me that he's never told me that I needed to be strong for all these people in my life. I lost my mother. I was free to grieve however I wanted. But the way that people put it to me and I took it in and I wore it, it made me feel like I couldn't be anything but strong. Because it's like, what are these people going to think of me if I'm not strong? You know what I mean? They're going to think that, oh, no, y'all know she ain't right now. She lost her mama. She not right. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, well, I don't want that. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to just be strong then. So I took it and wore it, and it was never mine to wear in the first place. And so I want people to know that no matter who you lose, if it's a person, if it's an experience, if it's a job, if it's just a change in scenery, you lose your house. And so much is going on now with COVID and so many different losses, and what we looked like last year and what we look like this year. People are grieving that you don't have to be strong through any of it. Like, you have to literally unpack that thing and figure out what it is that you want to do, because being strong literally keeps us in this box that we're afraid to even peek our head over top of the box to see that there's still life after death for us. After your loss, there's still life, and you can go out and get it, but you have to acknowledge it first and tell people, listen. I told people, listen, please don't call me another strong Black woman, because I don't want to be a strong Black woman. Okay. I don't want to. That word is too heavy. And I realized it weighed more than I needed to weigh. And I'm like, let's take that back.
They do it because they expect that of us. And it's like, no, whenever you expect that of us, that's putting a burden on us. And again,
absolutely.
And I'm going, okay, your book gave me the excuse saying, wait, I don't have to be the strong one. It's okay. It is literally okay. Yeah, it's
'Cause
okay.
when you do put it on and you're like, "Oh, I got to be strong," it doesn't leave any room for error
Right.
because you feel like you can't mess up. I can't mess this up because
Right.
these people are counting
Yes.
on me to be strong and to do
Yes.
this or whatever. And so
Yeah.
then when you do mess up, you're hard on yourself. Now
Yeah.
you have, gave yourself low
Yes.
self-esteem because you're like, God, I ain't strong. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, so I'm just
Mhm.
not good at nothing. I
Mhm.
couldn't even do this. I couldn't even be strong for them. So
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So now you've given this, you've made yourself such a negative person because you couldn't hold up to other
Because
people's.
you're trying to be strong.
Yep, trying to be strong and trying to hold yourself to other people's unrealistic
Right.
expectations of you. Like that's
Exactly.
the thing. You let these people put their unrealistic expectations on you and you wore it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I was like, nope, I'm taking this thing off and throwing it in the trash. I don't want
Exactly. And then kicking it to the curb.
it. Okay, exactly. Like you can have it. Somebody, whoever wanted it, it's yours. You want to be strong?
Okay.
Go ahead. It's yours now.
Take
I don't
it.
want it.
Man, Margarita, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for giving us a reason to keep moving on. Thank you for telling us and saying, hey, it's going to be okay. Like at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. Be you, do you, and it's going to be okay. Now, before we go, though, I need you to go ahead and leave a quote with our audience that whenever they hear it, they think Margarita from grief to glory. So go ahead and hit them with it.
My quote is, I hope that you find peace in your pieces.
I like it. Can you say it one more time? I like that. Say it again, please.
I hope that you find peace in your pieces.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. Now, again, one more thing I almost forgot. I have a copy, but I want you to tell everyone else where they can get a copy of their own of your book, From Grief to Glory.
You can find my book on my webpage at grieftoglory.squarespace.com.
Got it. And that's square like the letter. I mean, like the shape.
Just like the shape. Grief to Glory at squarespace.com.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you again, Margarita, for coming on the show. Thank you for being raw and transparent. Don't change. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Do not change. Love it. All right. Again, this is Galeen, your host from Let's Meet the Author. We had an awesome time here with Margarita Hill. All right. And I want to leave you with my own final thought. Books are like hidden doors, each revealing their own adventure. Pick one up, read it, and start your own journey. Until next time, stay safe. See you soon. Bye.